Hi, my name is Tara Baker. I'm a biology instructor at PCC, and I am an amateur paleontologist. I don't even want to call myself an amateur paleontologist because that sounds like I know a lot more than I do, but I am a member of the North American Research Group, or NARG for short. We meet once a month in Hillsborough at the Rice Museum in good times when it's not COVID. And we learn a lot about the paleontology specifically here in Oregon, a little bit of Washington, a little bit of California, but really we focus on what were the critters that were living here in Oregon in geological time. So today what I wanted to do was to show you some of my very favorite places in Oregon to collect fossils. So I've got a slide presentation, so let me go ahead and call that up and we'll get started. So I'm so excited to talk to you about this because paleontology is kind of a passion of mine. I would say it's a hobby, but it's more of a passion. So I've really been getting into it in the last 6 years. And when I joined the NARG group, and I've been able to collect around the United States, but in many different places in Oregon. So before we talk about collecting in Oregon specifically, I want to go through some very specific things. There's rules about fossil collecting. First of all, you have to know those rules before you go out. So let's see, I'm gonna call up my pen so I can show and highlight some things. Okay, so first of all, know the rules. We can legally collect invertebrates almost anywhere except for in national parks and national monuments. So that means the John Day National Fossil Beds and Crater Lake, those places are off limits for collecting. You can't collect anything there, but in state parks, in the Forest Service areas, all of those places we can collect invertebrates. Now, most people aren't really excited about invertebrates except for those paleontologists. So we know that invertebrates have been around for a much longer time than vertebrates. So when I talk about invertebrates, what I'm talking about are things without a backbone. So that's going to include most marine organisms that don't have a backbone. So no fish are included, no sharks are included, no whales. Okay, you can't collect those, but you can collect all these other things, which are the mollusks. So you can collect any kind of, if you're lucky enough to find an octopus, especially a beak, that would be awesome. You could collect that. You can collect any kind of shell material. You can collect any kind of, let's see, shells and bugs. There's lots of different kinds of bug fossils that you can find, insect fossils. And for people who are really into paleontology, our best, most beautiful invertebrates are ammonites and trilobites. So ammonites are like these. So you can see this. This is a really nice ammonite, a half of an ammonite. And ammonite was a critter that is related to the squid. So they lived in this beautiful shell that was circular like this, and then they had tentacles that came out. Now the ammonites have been around for a really long time. They're extinct now, but they were around for a really long time. So we can find them in many different places in the United States, well, around the world. So this ammonite that really is fantastic, and you can see there's crystals on the inside. This guy's from Madagascar. So whenever you see these in a shop, and they're for sale, they're from Madagascar almost always. Now, most of the ammonites that we are going to see are not going to be this pretty. So where can we find ammonites in Oregon? I'm going to show you. So ammonites are an invertebrate that we love to collect. Another invertebrate that we like to collect are trilobites. So this is a trilobite, and you might have seen these before. These are related to insects and to other arthropods. And I don't think there's any trilobite sites in Oregon. And I could be wrong about that, but I did collect some in Idaho, and there are many in Idaho, Utah, and Nevada. So they're kind of close by. So those are the invertebrates that we usually love to collect. And then some people like to collect the crabs, and crabs are a lot less common, but around Oregon, they're very common. So they're usually inside concretions, and we can look those up. We can work with those to expose the fossils. So anyway, you can collect invertebrates almost anywhere except for national parks and monuments. Vertebrate material. Now, if you go anywhere in the United States, you will not be able to collect vertebrate material anywhere. So a vertebrate is going to be those dinosaur bones that everybody's excited about, right? You're not going to be able to collect those anywhere except on the Oregon coast. So the Oregon coast has a rule that you can collect a limited amount of material from vertebrates. So I actually have right here a whale vertebra that I found on Beverly Beach. So this was an awesome find. It was really exciting. I have a lot of friends that have skulls and other body parts, other bone material from vertebrates. So this is whale, you can find dolphin, you can find seal, but no dinosaur bones in Oregon. Now, it's only on the coast that you can get vertebrates. So when you go inland, and I'll give you some examples of places that do have vertebrate bone, you cannot collect those unless they're on private land and you have permission. All right, so this map over here on the right-hand side shows you all the different places that I have liked to collect. Now there's plenty more. I'm not a person who really likes to collect petrified wood, and a lot of people do. So none of those sites are on here. I'm gonna walk you through all the sites I like, and they are all, I'm gonna organize them by time. So before you go out, I want you to do your research. Where are you going? Make sure that you know exactly where you're going, have maps, have GPS if you can find them, but know where you're going first of all and what kind of emergency preparation you need to make. Another one, what are you looking for? And this one is so hard because if you're just beginning, you really don't have any idea what you're looking for. This looks like a bone. Okay, so this to me looks like a bone. But if you look at this picture over here on the lower left-hand side, that is a skull. It's a whale skull inside the rock. And it hasn't been exposed yet. It hasn't been prepared yet. But this was found, it's about this size, and it was found on the Oregon coast at Moolock Beach by a friend of mine. So if you don't know what you're looking for, you're looking at through all these rocks and you don't know what a fossil looks like in this specific area, you're gonna miss it. The picture up on the top is a picture of shark vertebra. So this one's from Beverly Beach. And if you don't know what a shark vertebra is, you might just look at that and think that that's a strange kind of rock. And it's exactly what you're looking for. So make sure before you go, you see pictures, you know what you're looking for, and you know where to find them. Then finally, make sure you know what kind of equipment you need to collect these things. Obviously, these two bones that are right here, you could just pick up off the beach. This vertebra that I found here, you just pick it up off the beach, but sometimes you're going to need some more equipment to find those fossils. So what are you going to want to take with you? You're going to want basic gear. Make sure you have your safety equipment. Make sure you have emergency food rations. Make sure you have a raincoat and water, always water. Make sure you have maps. And I don't mean just using and depending on your phone, okay? If you use your phone alone, you're going to have to download the map ahead of time. Don't depend on having any kind of Wi-Fi. Not most, but many of the places that we're going to go or that you will go to look for fossils will not have good internet. And so you want to make sure that you have a paper map or that you have downloaded the maps, maybe from Gaia GPS. That's what I do before I go. You want to make sure you have a camera. You want to document this fantastic find that you're going to make. And then you want the right tools. So the tools are going to depend on the matrix. That's the rock that's surrounding your fossil. So what kind of tools do you need? Most of the time, if you're at the coast, most of the time you can just pick things up off the coast from the rocks. But sometimes you need a rock hammer and a chisel, even on the coast. So you, unless you're a member of NARG, you do not have a permit to collect by using a chisel and a rock hammer on the coast. So if you're a member, you get a permit and then we can use those. So if you see anybody out there using one, you can go ahead and ask them if they have a permit. However, there's other places around Oregon where a hammer and a chisel are going to be great, and you're going to definitely want to have them on hand. So there are different kinds of rock hammers and there are different kinds of chisels. When I say chisel, make sure it's a rock chisel. Do not use a wood chisel. A wood chisel is very sharply, has a fine edge, and you're going to damage that on rocks. So a rock chisel is what you need. All right, so you're ready to go. You've got all your tools. You've got your backpack full of equipment, and you know exactly where you're going. So these are some of my favorite places so far to collect in Oregon. I've ordered them from oldest to the youngest, so you can see kind of the variety of places that you can go. So the first is Paleozoic, so really old. The oldest rocks in Oregon are found down here in this area. And this area is almost directly south of Mitchell, east of Bend, and a little bit west of Burns. So this is Burns right here. This is Bend. So this place is called the Isley Inlier. It's a really special place, and I'll talk about it in a second. But that one is Central Oregon for sure, and it has the oldest rocks in Oregon that are in the Paleozoic. Then we've got Mesozoic. I've given two examples here. The Isley area, so a little bit outside of what we call the Inlier. I'll show you an example of something from the Triassic period. And then in Mitchell, I'm going to show you where I found some ammonites that I'm very proud of. And these are from the Mesozoic. Then the Cenozoic. The Cenozoic is going to be younger by far. It's going to be when our coast was mostly ocean, and many of these places are found around that or within that area that would have been ocean at that time. So I really like Cape Arago, the Newport beaches, fantastic. That is my absolute favorite places. Mist is near Vernonia. And then the last place is the youngest place that I have collected fossils, and I'm saying fossils with fingers. It's from the Pleistocene, and that is at Woodburn High School. So I'm going to go through each one of those places and give you a little bit more information about what you can find there. So this area called the Isley Inlier. This is a very small area that's all on private ranch land right now. So you have to have permission to go there. It once upon a time was a bunch of islands in an inland sea. And these islands they have rocks of different time periods. So there are 3 different periods of rocks from the Paleozoic that are in a very small acreage area. And you can go to all 3 within an hour by walking. There are Devonian samples, Carboniferous samples, and Permian samples. So this area, having the oldest rocks, it also has a variety of rocks, and it's really very interesting. And paleontologists have known about it for a long time, and it's been studied in depth. But right now there's a whole bunch of cows roaming around all over it because it is an active ranch land. So you need permission to go. The group I'm part of, NARG, we go once a year, and it's an annual visit. The kinds of things that you're going to find are probably not very exciting to you because they're all things that came before bones. So the Devonian is mostly reef coral, which is, I find that boring myself. But Carboniferous samples are horn coral, and those are really neat. I'll show you a picture in just a second. And then the Permian samples are the biggest crinoid stems I've ever seen. So this is a horn coral over here on the left-hand side that's about 2 inches large, 2 inches in size. That's pretty big for a horn coral. So these are solitary corals living on their own, and that one's a beautiful sample. Now the thing on the right is a Permian crinoid. So the crinoids are, I have a picture of it later, but the crinoids are still around. They've been around from that long time ago all the way until now. So they've been around for a very long time, and they haven't changed very much. So they're made out of stems that are discs, made up of thousands of discs, and then they have feathery appendages. They're animals, but they look like underwater plants. So this here and here, these are parts of their stem. So these came from 2 mountains, 2 hills that were next to each other in this area. Now, Isley and Suplee, if you look for them on the map, they don't exist anymore. They are both ghost towns in Central Oregon. So you really need to have some help if you're going to go out to this area to look for fossils. First of all, you need permission, but then you're also going to need some help to get around and find the right places. All right, near this area of Isley Suplee, the Inlier, near this special area, there's also a lot of fossils around the area. So within 5 miles of that inlier area, there is a road cut. And beside that road cut, a guy named Greg Carr and his daughter were looking for other fossils, which it's legal to look along road cuts for fossils. And they came upon some bones. They went through a whole bunch of exploration trying to find out who owned this road cut. They assumed it was owned by the county or by the state. They found out that it was actually on a person's land, private land. So they had to figure out where the private landowners lived, contact them and ask for permission to go and look for more of the bones to take them back with them. What they found was a grouping of several different thalatosaurs. So more than 450 bones altogether of multiple thalatosaurs all in the same area. And these are marine animals that were 13 feet long or more. So this is a new species probably, and it's being studied right now in Alaska by the University of Alaska, who Greg contacted to get somebody to study this and to write up about it. He named him Bernie. He's part of NARG. Greg is part of NARG. And he named him Bernie because it was on the ranch land by the ranch owner was named Bernie. So the largest of the thalatosaurs was named Bernie. So Greg is actually a fantastic prepper. So he can go he's really good at finding fossils, but he can also take the fossils home in great big rocks, and he will take them actually to OMSI, where he is a volunteer in their paleontology lab. And in the paleontology lab, he will use multiple tools to expose the bones. So he exposed 450 bones, and each one of those bones then he made a copy of with a plastic printer. So he made the plastic printer himself, and he scanned everything himself, and he made actually 2 copies. One is now hanging up at the Rice Museum of Rocks and Minerals in Hillsborough. So if you'd like to go see it, it is available. The actual bones have been sent on to the University of Alaska for study. So this is Mesozoic Triassic. So this is slightly younger than what is found just right down the road, but it was right on the surface of the roadbed. And it just happened that as they were looking on this roadbed, they saw white bones sticking out, and it was fossilized thalatosaur. Okay, getting a little bit younger, there's a Mesozoic Cretaceous period area by Mitchell. So so just on this map to get an idea of where we're at, this is Madras, this is Redmond, and this is Prineville. So if you go through the Ochakos Mountains, you end up in Mitchell. Right north of Mitchell, there's a special area called the Hudspeth Formation. The Hudspeth Formation is known for its ammonites. Now I'm going to show you what the ammonite looks like, but it's not that exciting where you get it, unless you know what you're looking for, okay? So if you go there and you're expecting to find something really cool and obvious, you're not gonna get it. You have to actually know what you're looking for. So a professor from the University of Oregon was taking a group of students to the Hudspeth Formation to collect ammonites. And while they were there, they found a bone. And this bone was actually from an ornithopod, which is related to the duckbill. So it's a dinosaur bone. Now, the thing that is exciting about this is that dinosaurs could not have lived in Oregon. Oregon was covered with ocean at the time of the dinosaurs. So there's large marine reptiles like the thalatosaur that are roaming around, okay? So the thalatosaur was roaming around in the water at the same time as the dinosaurs were on land, but Oregon was covered with ocean. So there should not be any terrestrial dinosaurs that are in Oregon. So what they have proposed is, and this was a single toe bone, really small, that this is an example of a bloat and float. So somewhere in Idaho, this poor ornithopod died and fell into the water. And he floated and floated. His body was floated because it was bloated. And he floated all the way to Oregon and got into the waterways, and one of his bones was trapped in the Hudspeth Formation. That's crazy. So we do not have dinosaur bones in Oregon because Oregon was covered with water. You know that dinosaurs are only terrestrial, right? So anything that was in the water was a marine reptile, and anything that was on land was a dinosaur reptile, or dinosaur anyway. Okay, so Oregon was covered with water, and so we don't expect to find dinosaurs here. Now, the cool thing about the Hudspeth Formation is it's on public land and it's well documented. That's why the University of Oregon was there. And it's a great fossil ammonite site. So let me show you what kind of things you're going to find there. So this rock on the right is actually this size. Okay, so this is the rock on the right. This is an ammonite. Now the ammonite, when it comes out of the ground, is pretty ugly and pretty dirty. It's also kind of fragile. But you know it's an ammonite because of these things on the left. So the ammonite is this critter. And inside the shell, if we took the shell off, which is what happened with all the ammonites at this location, then you will see sutures that are underneath the shell. And those sutures fill up with water, and that water is pushed around and it helps the animal move through the water, going up and down and forward and backwards. So these are called sutures. And this is a picture I took with my microscope, just to show you at a little bit higher magnification. But this is a beautiful example of an ammonite from that location. Again, know what you're looking for. If you went and you dug at this place and you were thinking that you were going to find this, you would be sorely disappointed. All right, now we're going to go over to the coast and we're going to start looking at things that are much younger. So in the Cenozoic Tertiary, specifically the Eocene, we can find an area around Cape Arago. So Cape Arago is here, right off Coos Bay. So if you go there, there are a couple different locations, specifically Sunset Bay, which is a state park, and Cape Arago State Park. Those two parks, there's one specific beach there that's awesome. You're going to be able to find concretions and sand dollars. And this is one of the only locations you can find fossilized sand dollars. So remember, a concretion is a rock, usually perfectly circular, perfectly round. And when you open it up, you will find a fossil inside. So this picture on the left was not a great concretion. It was already worn off. It's not perfectly round, but what you're seeing right here is a crab claw. And so if I was better at preparation, you'd be able to see that there was a crab in there. But I'm pretty bad at it, so that has not been exposed yet. All right, but the other picture is something I'm really proud of, and that is right here. This is a sand dollar. So the sand dollar, this is, like, as I said, one of the only places where you can find sand dollars on the coast. So that's because it's a little bit older than all the other beaches in Oregon. It's Eocene epoch. All right, then we go at the same time, well, no, we go a little bit, I guess a little bit younger, is Mist. So Mist is actually right north of Vernonia. So here's Portland right here, and this is Astoria. So and Vernonia is right here. So if you take this highway, you go into this little area called Mist, which isn't really a town anymore. Mist is really well known for having this formation called the Kesey Formation. And the Kesey Formation is well known for its crinoid lagerstatt. So a lagerstatt is an area where there's just tons and tons and tons of fossils that are readily available and in good shape. So this is a very special place called a lagerstatt, and it's well known in paleontology circles. So the place that we actually went, this was on a field trip with NARG, so we had permission, is on the Nehalem River next to private property. So we had to go across his private property to get to the Nehalem River. But the Nehalem River, and any river that you can travel on, it's legal to collect fossils in, invertebrate fossils. So if you could get there just by the river, then it would be legal and you wouldn't have to ask permission, but it's just nicer to ask permission to go there. So the crinoids that we found on this trip were in large rocks that were at the bottom of the river. So this is the Nehalem River, which was only about, the deepest was a foot deep. And then there were large bedrocks. We pulled up the large bedrocks and there were shale. So we were able to split them. So here's my rock hammer. And what we were able to find was this over here on the left-hand side. So this is what the crinoids look like. So the crinoids are the ones that have the discs that make up the stems and then the feathers, and they look like plants, but they're actually marine animals, and they have not changed much at all. What this is a picture of the feathery appendages, and it's really not a fossil, but it's an imprint that's been left behind. It's a cast of a crinoid. So we would call this a trace fossil. A trace fossil is when it's actually not the living organism that has been replaced with rock, but it's an impression. And that's what we find more often than not. So this is the group, part of our group, and this is where we were collecting over here on the right. Okay. Now you're hearing my dog in the background. All right, so we collected those and those were kind of fun. Now, another area that is from the Tertiary Miocene epoch is the John Day fossil beds. Now here, I'm going to say John Day fossil beds, you might have heard of them before. They are a national monument, so you cannot collect there. You have to be off that property, so do not collect inside the John Day fossil beds. However, we do know of a location that is outside of it and public land and BLM land, and so it's legal to go collect there. So here's Mitchell again, where we had collected our Ammonite samples. Here's Prineville, here's Redmond, and here's Madras. Okay, so if you go straight over here to Mitchell and you go to the John Day fossil beds, outside of the John Day fossil beds, there's a place where we can collect a lot of different plant impressions. So again, it's trace fossils, but these are beautiful trace fossils, and they're leaves and seed pods of subtropical plant species. So that's so cool, that are from the Tertiary Miocene. So here's a couple examples of fossils that I found. This is an elm, or an elm relative, an elm leaf on the left-hand side. And this over here, you can see right here, and here, here, and here. These are examples of a metasequoia leaf. So a metasequoia we thought it was extinct, but and nobody could find them anywhere. And then somebody found a small orchard in the middle of China in the 1940s. And since that time, now we've been able to bring them back to Oregon and grow them here again. But they are, metasequoias are growing here now, and you can see and compare. And the metasequoia is called a living fossil because it has not changed over many, many years. The metasequoia is also the Oregon state fossil. All right, now we're moving up to my favorite area, which is the Newport area. So back over here on this map of the Oregon coast, Newport is right here. And right north of Newport is the first beach called Moolock Beach, and then another beach called Beverly. And most people have heard of Beverly Beach. On both of those beaches, you can collect a ton of fossils, all from the time of the Miocene. There's clams, snails, other mollusks, all kinds of things. There are things called teredo wood. I have an example of that. Teredo wood is right here. So this is a piece of basically driftwood that teredo snails have gotten into and started to destroy all before it got fossilized. So it's basically rotting wood fossil. And it's kind of exciting. This is what the teredo wood looks like when you do a slice of it, and it's beautiful. So those perfectly round circle areas are where the snail bored into the wood and lived, and then they were covered with sediment, became a fossil. The snails are gone, but the holes are still there, and they're beautiful. So teredo wood is something special that we like to look for. This is another example of teredo wood. This, actually, I saw this at the beach just last weekend, And I thought it was a piece of burnt wood from somebody's campfire. And I touched it and banged it with my stick, and it's a fossil. It's a stone. So that was really neat to see. And this one actually has rings on it that I'm able to see. I'm really excited to see this one. Really excited to grab that one. Okay, but the things that we like the most, that I like the most, are the fossil bones, so vertebrate bones. Now, the cool thing about Newport area is that you're going to be able to find fish, shark, whale, and dolphins, which are called cetaceans, and then seals. So you can find bones from all of these different animals on the beach. Now, it's not easy to do. The best time to go is in the winter time after a big storm has come and there's a negative tide. So you want to go when the tide is going out, you follow it out and you look for lots of rocks in one area on the beach. And then you look at every single rock and you find all kinds of cool things. So in this picture, this is what you're going to see a lot of. You're going to see a lot of clam shells. So this is one of my favorites. This was actually in a concretion. So remember, the concretion is the round rock. So the rock looked like this, but a small portion of a shell was showing. So it actually looked like a pancake, fat pancake, or a hamburger bun. Okay. When I took the hamburger bun and then I knocked it on the side with my hammer and chisel, it broke open to show this gorgeous shell. So you can see a lot of these at Beverly Beach at any time of year. This is an example of a grouping of fossils of smaller clams. You're going to find all kinds of different kinds of mollusks there. You're going to find snail bones, snail shells, things like that. This one was really pretty. It just had a whole bunch of shells that were all in one place together. Now this on the left-hand side is a rock that is probably a dolphin. It's too small to be a whale, but that is a dolphin vertebra. So I, as a biologist, know what a vertebra looks like. And so I know what I'm looking for, but get some help whenever you want to go out to look. They're very few and far between. There are not a lot of vertebrate fossils out there. There's not a lot of bone fossils out there. So you want somebody to help you the first few times. I know I did. This is a video that just shows when I found my first fossil. I was really excited. This is my vertebra that I found here. That's me excited. All right, oh, there we go.
My first fossilized whale vertebra. Awesome.
Yeah, I get excited. All right, but this is my most special, most favorite fossil find ever. So here is what I found. This is a rock showing small parts of bone here, here, and here. I took it home and I started working with it, exposing the bone, and I was able to expose this bone here. This is a femur. I was also able to take it entirely out of its concretion and hold the whole fossil in my hand. And what we determined at NARG was that this is a femur from a seal. So seals don't have legs, right? But they do have femurs. And their femurs are part of their fins or their flippers. So this is my favorite fossil. I love this fossil of mine. So it's just so cool. That's the color, that's the natural color. And I was able to prep it in a way that I could be proud of and keep it. So if you have a chance to go to Newport and to Beverly Beach specifically during a low tide, look through all the rocks and start collecting. It's a great place to go. All right, the last place that I'm going to talk about is Woodburn High School. So Woodburn High School is called the La Brea of the Northwest. So if you've heard of the La Brea tar pits, in LA, then you know that there were a bunch of animals that got stuck in some tar and their bodies were preserved and they didn't actually turn into fossils. The bone is still bone, and in some cases they have skin and hair and other things. So there is a La Brea of the Northwest. There was some public works being done around Woodburn High School, in the back of the Woodburn High School. And when the employees were digging back there, they exposed a bone. Now, there was all kinds of confusion. Everybody was really worried that it was human, because that's what you worry about first. Then they realized that it belonged to an animal. So then they weren't as worried, but then they realized that it was from the Pleistocene age. So it was from a time about 10 to 13,000 years ago. And from that period on, every year, the public works people come and they do a huge dig, and they do another area of that space in the back of Woodburn High School. And the high school kids get to look through the bones and get to look to see what they can find. And then it's open to the public afterwards. So this is an annual event when there's no COVID. There's an annual event in August, and people can come for about a week and you can dig through the mud. So up here is a picture of a couple of the people I know, and they are going through the dirt and spraying all the dirt off and trying to reveal the small fossils inside these trays. And they have found tiny fossils. This is a fish scale from a stickleback fish, and it is about half the size of my pinky nail, so really small. This is a little vertebra. They have found fossils from beaver, bison, frog, turtle, birds, muskrat, and they have found 2,000 to 3,000 bones, and they get about 200 bones more every year. So if you're interested in doing that kind of thing and seeing that, that is from the Pleistocene, and they are open and available to do that. You can find him on Facebook. The individual's name that is in charge of this is Dave Ellingson, and he's a member of NARG. All right, so those are lots of the different places that I love here in Oregon, and all the different kinds of things that I like to collect here in Oregon. If you would like to get started, here is some information about the NARG group. So they are amateur paleontologists, and some of us don't know anything, and then some of us know quite a bit, and they're actual experts who have been providing the Smithsonian with information and skulls and things like that. So check them out. Another place that is great to check out in Oregon is the University of Oregon. So the University of Oregon has a really good earth sciences program for undergrads and graduate students, and you can go on a paleontology track. So most of the big, beautiful fossils that our club collects actually goes to the University of Oregon, and they are on display at the Museum of Natural and Cultural History. So they're doing lots of cool research there, and if you want to learn more about paleontology, that is the university to go check out. Also, I love books. And so I've just given you a couple of my favorite ones. Gem Trails in Oregon is fantastic for any kind of rock. It gives you good maps, pictures of what you're looking for, GPS, which you'll find is really necessary and a really good help. Another book, there's actually a couple books. The one that I've got on the slide there is Cruising the Fossil Coastline. And then this one is Cruising the Fossil Freeway. These are two individuals, and Ray Troll is the artist. These are fantastic. And there's so much information in here, including some of our members who are experts, and they are actually part of these books. But these are great, easy books to read. But my favorite resource for you guys is going to be this book right here. So this book is Bringing Fossils to Life, and it is a really great resource. It gives you information about how fossils are made, how to find fossils, and then where do all these living things fit in the history of living things. So it gives you some information about the evolution of different characteristics and what you're looking for. So I was so excited when I got asked to give you guys a lecture about paleontology, and I am so jealous that you're in geology right now and learning about it. I don't know a lot about geology, and I wish I knew more. So enjoy the rest of your term and hopefully the rest of your education. Okay, thanks. Bye.